Imagine standing on a rocky shore before sunrise, looking across the narrow waters between North Africa and Europe, knowing that beyond those waves lies a land that will soon become one of the most important chapters in Islamic history. In the year 711 CE, history was about to change forever. Islam had spread across regions within less than a century, carrying a civilization shaped by faith, learning, courage, and a determination to build a better future. Yet the arrival of Islam in Iberia was not simply the story of armies crossing a sea. It was the beginning of Al-Andalus, a civilization whose influence would remain visible for centuries. To understand how Islam reached Spain, we must first look beyond Spain itself. After the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, in 632 CE, Muslim communities expanded beyond the Arabian Peninsula. During the following decades, Muslim rule reached Egypt, North Africa, and lands farther west. By the end of the 7th century, Muslim forces and communities had established themselves across much of North Africa. The region became a bridge between the Islamic world and the Mediterranean, bringing people, ideas, languages, trade, and cultures into closer contact. Across the water stood the Iberian Peninsula, ruled largely by the Visigoths. Their kingdom was experiencing internal divisions, political struggles, and disputes over succession. These weaknesses would later become important when Muslim forces entered the peninsula. But the story was not as simple as one kingdom defeating another. Political instability, local alliances, regional conflicts, and the ambitions of different groups all contributed to what happened next. In North Africa, the Muslim governor Musa ibn Nusayr oversaw the expansion of Muslim authority and the consolidation of territories. According to historical accounts, the next step came in 711 CE, when Tariq ibn Ziyad led a Muslim force across the strait, separating Africa from Iberia. The mountain where they landed would later become associated with his name, Jabal Tariq, known today as Gibraltar. Picture that moment. A small force had crossed into unfamiliar territory, leaving behind the shores of Africa and entering a land whose future was uncertain. Ahead stood a divided kingdom, difficult terrain, and an enemy capable of resistance. Behind them stretched the sea. The crossing represented more than a military movement. It marked the opening of a historical chapter. The campaign moved rapidly, and Muslim forces defeated King Roderick's army at the Battle of Guadalete, although the details of the battle remain debated by historians. Following this victory, several cities and regions came under Muslim control. The momentum continued, and within a short period, large parts of the peninsula were incorporated into Muslim rule. This was how the foundations of Al-Andalus began. What started with a crossing from North Africa would eventually develop into a complex society where Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived under changing political circumstances, while scholarship, architecture, agriculture, and culture flourished over time. The journey had begun, and the next chapter would reveal how far this transformation could reach. The story now enters its most dramatic chapter, because the first victory in Iberia did not guarantee success. Tariq ibn Ziyad and his forces had entered a land uncertain. After the Battle of Guadalete in 711 CE, Muslim forces advanced through the peninsula with remarkable speed. Several cities surrendered, while others resisted, and the Visigothic kingdom began to collapse. Tariq moved toward important centers, including Toledo, the Visigothic capital, while other forces continued their campaigns. These developments moved remarkably quickly. Yet behind the victories was a difficult reality. The Muslim forces were operating far from their original base, surrounded by unfamiliar landscapes and uncertain political loyalties. Every decision could change the future of the campaign. Tariq ibn Ziyad became a remembered figure of this period. Historical sources describe him as a commander who played a central role in the initial conquest. Later traditions famously connect him with his speech and the burning of ships, but historians debate the reliability of those details. What is clearer is that his campaign moved forward with determination after entering Iberia. The army did not simply conquer territory and stop. It encountered different communities and political groups, some of whom chose cooperation rather than continued resistance. Local circumstances varied greatly, making the conquest a complicated process rather than a single uninterrupted battle. Then came another major turning point. But the greatest test was not crossing the sea or winning battles. It was preserving unity after victory itself. Musa ibn Nusayr crossed into Iberia with additional forces in 712 CE. His arrival strengthened Muslim control and expanded the campaign beyond Tariq's territories. Together, the developments under Tariq and Musa transformed the peninsula's political map. Within a few years, Muslim rule extended across much of Iberia. Although resistance continued in northern mountainous, transformed the peninsula's political map. Within a few years, Muslim rule extended across much of Iberia, although resistance continued in northern mountainous regions. And here the story becomes suspenseful. Victory had come quickly, but holding such a vast territory would prove far more difficult than taking it. The Muslim leaders faced questions that no battlefield victory could answer. Could distant regions remain united? Could different communities live under a new political order? Could the new rulers maintain control while facing resistance from the north? Could the achievements of the first generation survive the ambitions and rivalries that would eventually emerge within Muslim leadership? These questions would shape the future of Al-Andalus. The early conquest was only the opening movement of a much larger historical drama. Political changes in the wider Islamic world soon affected Iberia, and the region would experience periods of unity, fragmentation, conflict, and renewal. The most remarkable transformation, however, was still ahead. Al-Andalus would not remain merely a conquered territory. Over generations, it would develop into a civilization recognized for cities, libraries, scholarship, architecture, agriculture, medicine, mathematics, philosophy, and artistic achievement. The armies had opened the door, but people, knowledge, institutions, and generations of builders would determine what stood behind that door. The crossing of 711 had created an opportunity, but history would now test whether that opportunity could become something lasting and extraordinary. The story of Al-Andalus reminds us that history is not created by one moment alone. The crossing of the strait in 711 opened a door, but generations of people shaped what came afterward. Over time, Muslim rule in Iberia developed through changing political eras, beginning with provincial rule connected to the wider Umayyad world, and later becoming an independent emirate under Abd al-Rahman I in 756 CE. In 929 CE, Abd al-Rahman III proclaimed the Caliphate of Cordoba, marking one of the most powerful periods in the history of Al-Andalus. Cordoba grew into a major center of learning, culture, trade, and architecture. Mosques, gardens, libraries, markets, and schools reflected the ambition of society. Scholars studied medicine, astronomy, mathematics, philosophy, agriculture, and language, while knowledge moved between regions and communities. The legacy of Al-Andalus cannot be reduced to a simple story of conquest or glory. Its history included cooperation and conflict, prosperity and hardship, tolerance at some times and persecution at others, political unity and devastating division. Muslim, Christian, and Jewish communities lived through changing circumstances, and their experiences varied according to time, place, and political authority. Yet perhaps the greatest lesson is not found only in magnificent buildings or famous rulers. It is found in the determination to build, learn, adapt, and leave something valuable for the next generation. Al-Andalus demonstrates how a society can become influential when knowledge is respected, institutions are developed, and people believe that their efforts can shape the future. Its libraries and centers of scholarship remind us that strength is not measured only by armies. Intellectual curiosity, education, discipline, creativity, and service can influence history for centuries. The rise of Al-Andalus also teaches another lesson. Success is never permanent. Political divisions eventually weakened Muslim rule, and the peninsula gradually changed through centuries of conflict, alliances, and reconquest. The fall of Granada in 1492 brought the period of Muslim political rule in Iberia to an end, but did not erase lasting cultural traces left behind. Today, the story of Al-Andalus continues to inspire people globally because it represents both achievement and warning. From a small crossing between two continents came a chapter that transformed history. Tariq ibn Ziyad's arrival was only the beginning. The generations that followed gave Al-Andalus its character, achievements, struggles, and enduring legacy. For us, the lesson is powerful. Never underestimate the beginning of a journey. A single step, a single decision, or a single commitment to learning can become the foundation of something much greater. The history of Islam over more than 1,400 years contains countless moments that began with uncertainty but became sources of lasting influence. Al-Andalus stands as one of those moments. Its story challenges us to seek knowledge, build with purpose, remain humble in success, and learn from failure. History is not merely something to remember. It is something from which we can learn. If you're benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.